you know, and your vibe attracts your tribe. And I say, hey, I have no idea where I'm at. So my buddy says, drop a pin on your map. And as soon as I dropped the pin on the map, the phone died.
Oh no!
So
What would you say?
yeah, I think that's normal, right? You know, any mature believer is going to have moments like that in their faith where they have questions. And
Okay.
so they had to call my wife to say, hey, we lost your husband out there.
Oh, I've been excited for this one. I've been excited to have this conversation with Jeff Zelaya, okay? We met a couple years ago. We've been friends for a couple years. And so listen, today we're talking about brotherhood, fatherhood, manhood, physical, faith. Listen, if you are someone who's looking to build strong foundations, who's a forward thinker, this episode, you are going to enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the entire conversation, and I'm really ready for you to listen to it as well. So let's get into it. Let's go on with the show. It's been an interesting journey so far. How do you feel?
Frank, I feel pumped, dude. I mean, I've been waiting for this. Like the countdown, as soon as you told me, hey, I'm launching a podcast, I'm like, I hope he picks me. I hope he picks me. And I get that call, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm in. I was trying to hold back. I had to let you sweat a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I'm in. No, I'm so excited because every time we talk, we always have some great conversations.
Yeah.
And I just always look forward to it. You know, we have a deep connection ever since that first time we met.
Yeah.
And we just had that vibe. You know, and your vibe attracts your tribe.
Ooh, okay.
And we're
already
part of that tribe. We're part of that tribe. You know, we share a lot of similar values. We're very ambitious, going after big goals. So, you know, just love the brotherhood.
Yeah.
And when you have two good brothers, iron sharpens iron.
Yes,
so I feel every time I'm with you, I'm going to get sharper.
Dude, man, you already just came in, just dropped in some gems already, bro. So tell me, actually, I want to start here because people got to have a little bit more context of what you are. We met, I think it was 2-3 years ago?
Yeah. I was thinking about, maybe 2-3 years ago now.
All right. So we met at an event. We kind of kicked it off. And then, but at the time you were working in SaaS, right?
Yeah, and I remember clearly, I won't forget. It was a networking event, I think somewhere in Rockville. And it was at a country club, really nice, you know, people dressed up in suits. And, you know, I felt a little bit out of place because everyone was much nicer dressed than I was, including yourself.
I felt a little out of place, ain't gonna lie.
And even seeing you, man, like I said, you were a young guy, probably you were some of the youngest guys in that room.
Yeah.
And you were just kind of moving around. You were connecting people. You were just, man, this guy, he's got that juice. You know, he's doing something. So I gravitated towards that, and I'm like, let me learn more about you. And I got to know you a little deeper, as well as Zachary. I remember he was at that event as well. Yeah. And we hit it off. And you guys have been just a lot of value add to my network, putting me in touch with some really cool people, inviting me to some really cool events. Now you're coming out to one of the events I'm hosting, so I just love it. We've been doing life together.
Yeah. I didn't want to go in there with the free ticket. I was like, yo, early bird, because you know I've done events for so long. You know what I mean? So I know what it is to I need some paid tickets. You know. Free tickets is always good, but as an entrepreneur myself, I'm like, instead of buying a free ticket from your boy, actually pay a ticket. And don't pay the early ticket. Pay the one that you can. You know,
dude, I love that philosophy, right?
You know what I mean? Like, don't wait. Don't pay the discount one. Pay the one that's legit the price of the ticket.
And that's how we got to normalize that, right? Sometimes you think you got a friend doing, running a business. You want to go ask for that discount. No, don't be that friend that asks for the discount. Be that friend that pays full price.
Thank you.
And goes above and is generous with their tip, and their
I saw your post yesterday. I was like, oh, that ain't gonna be me. I was like, that ain't gonna be me.
I love it.
Yeah, dude.
That's awesome, dude.
So tell me who you were before the SaaS, before I met you.
Jeff has gone through some evolutions, right? And I'm immigrant born. My parents are both immigrants, right? They came seeking a better opportunity in America. I was born and raised in Miami, and I grew up in a very diverse community. It was the inner city, but very diverse. I had all types of friends growing up. Luckily, education was always kind of the main vehicle to open up opportunities in my life. Yeah. So my mom, was very focused on getting me into good schools, making sure I got good grades, just like many Latino parents, hey, this is what you need to be doing, so you don't do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And I paid attention. So I went to a magnet program. I did as well as I could. And that brought me opportunities. I was a knucklehead, I think, in high school. I kind of got away from that, maybe made some, wrong friends, was a bad influence to people, but, things change, you evolve, you learn from your mistakes. And I just kept evolving, kept learning. I went to FIU, Florida International University, And that was one of, I waited before I started college, which I think was an amazing kind of a godsend for me, because it gave me some time to just kind of discover myself. And I recommend that for, high school students. You don't have to go to college right away. Don't feel pressured, especially if you're trying to still discover yourself. Take some time, to figure it out. Maybe it's interning, maybe it's working. And for me, it gave me an opportunity to work and then to discover that I had an interest in sales. I was working at this call center, and I was doing great. I was making good money. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I'm like, man, but the company started going downhill. But I realized in order to be able to do this kind of legitimately, I needed a degree. I wanted to go to college. So when I went, I was really serious about it. I got very involved in my school. I was part of many organizations. I was the student government leader, president, and I even went to got busy. Was part of the American Marketing Association. We won International Collegiate Group of the Year. Going against Ivy League schools, against international chapters, and I won first place in sales that was the first time they launched a sales competition, and I entered my name into the hat, and man, I came up first place. So
that's what's up.
So that gave me momentum. And a lot of the professors as well, they saw that spark that I had. They saw that hunger, that ambition, and they're like, man, let me invest in this kid. And I'm very grateful. I stay in touch with those professors to this day. And they've poured into my life. So that gave me that momentum. It gave me confidence. It gave me just the kind of like, hey, I could probably do this. Yeah. So I was very blessed. I graduated FIU at the top of my class. I was recognized at the commencement ceremony for being a World's Ahead graduate. So they made me stand up along with my family, which was a redeeming moment for me, because I actually ended up not graduating high school on time. And it broke my mom's heart. It broke her heart. Yeah, so that was, because I goofed off, I skipped,
This is all after the whole, like, you got an award, you got it, like, you locked
in. This is before locking in. Yeah, this is why I became locked in. Okay. This is why. So these are the moments that, the kind of those down moments, right? The valleys that we have to go through to be able to enjoy that peak much more. So that gave me that fuel to be able to lock in. So when I went to college, I was locked in. So that was a redemption for me. Having my mom, I could still see the tears welling up in her eye. Me too. It started getting pretty misty. Like, who's cutting these onions in here? Because it was great. Like, man, this felt really great. And I had offers as well. I graduated college having multiple job offers, which was great because it was a tough economy at the time. Yeah. But what kind of gave me that opportunity was I did a lot of internships. So when I was in college, I not only was I involved in the organizations, but I tried different things out, which is how I kind of came to DC in the first place. I got an internship to work at the USDA. And this was 12 years ago when Obama was getting inaugurated. So I was here for the inauguration. I was working, went to the White House, went to the Capitol.
That was 12 years ago.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, crazy, right? It flew by. But I got to see the world a bit more because I was never outside of Miami beyond that internship opportunity. So it made me try out what does it look like to work for the federal government? What does it look like to be on your own, right, without any support around? So it kind of discovered myself. Yeah. In the process, and set myself up for success, in the future as well.
So then, all right. So then that led you to where I met you, right? You were working on franchises. You had built this agency up. Like, tell me, how did that end up?
So there's a chunk of time in there, like more stuff that happened, right? But I think that's what I just mentioned up to this point has been the foundation. Okay. So from there, I went back to Miami, but I came now with bigger vision for what I could accomplish. Man, I went to DC. It's so cool out there. The energy, the people, the drive.
You didn't grow up in DC?
No. I'm originally born and raised in Miami.
Oh, so is that the reason why you went back like this last couple of weeks or something?
Well, yeah, exactly. So I was there recently. I go back, a couple times every year because I have my mom down there, family down there. My wife is also from Miami. We met in high school. So we went to North Miami Senior High. Shout out to the Pioneers. Hey. And so we grew up there. So we spent a lot of time down there. We were just down there 2 months with our kids, and it was a great experience just hanging out with family.
So what led you up here to Maryland then?
Well, as I mentioned, that internship was kind of an eye-opener for me. Like, wow, I really love these.
And y'all started to build that family.
Yeah, a whole different vibe. It was just kind of a preview first. I got my feet wet. My wife, at the time, my girlfriend came up, and she enjoyed it as well. Like, wow, this is really neat, neat environment. And we went back after my internship was over. Well, packed my bags, headed back down to Miami, got plugged in, just did some stuff down there. But over time, we were kind of open to the opportunity of relocating. And we just didn't know exactly where that was going to be. And it was a God-led moment because my wife, filled out her LinkedIn profile, started networking. She was also looking for something else. She was working for one of the big 4 accounting firms at the time, but was kind of seeking different opportunities. And a recruiter reached out to her, and lo and behold, that recruiter worked for Discovery Channel, which is based in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Oh, wow.
So when she mentioned that opportunity to me, I'm like, yeah, I know. I was
They're by the
housed
downtown Silver Spring, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
And I was housed when I was doing my internship. I was housed down the street from that. So I was like,
Wow.
man, this is all God.
Yeah.
Like, how did this happen? So I'm like, yeah, go for it. At the time, we just got married. We had no kids, really no obligation or anything to hold us back. So we went for it, and we made that big move, packed our bags, and we're still, packing my Toyota Camry with all the stuff, put the bikes in the back, it was loaded up.
Yeah.
And we made that drive. I said bye to everybody, celebrated, had a cake, and just, headed out the door. And we've been here ever since.
So you mentioned a lot, God, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to have a conversation with you is just because, like, not a soon husband, I'm a husband now, you know what I mean? Got married last year.
Yeah.
Now,
Congratulations.
Thank
yeah.
you. And then now it's about to be a father.
Yeah,
you know what I
dude,
mean?
wow.
Like, so, and I think we both went through this interesting path. Well, I think a lot of men went through this interesting path last year that I think maybe all of us, I think we spoke about it. I feel like, it was a lot of, I felt like it was just like, man, we're going through some spiritual battles right now.
Absolutely.
And I think, and I grew up in the faith. I grew up, my dad's a minister, I grew up in it, I fell off, and a lot, but I want to know a little bit about your journey, about like in your faith, like how has that been since that time, since before?
Yeah.
It seems like in your high school days there were some fall offs, and you're like, all right, it was always been like, I gotta lock in again.
Yeah.
And for me, you said 12 years. It's like, man, I was 16 when in 12 years ago, and 10 years ago is when I, ran away from home.
Don't make me feel old, Frank.
Yeah, not did. So 10 years ago, I ran away from home, and I think last year was like, I was like, dang, that was 10 years ago. I ran away when I was 17, not 18. And then I was just like, whoa, so looking at the time fly, I had to kind of get to a point where I was really thinking this: am I believing because I was taught to believe, or am I believing because I really truly believe and I'm understanding what I'm believing in? Have you ever felt like that? And what would you say to the young man who's kind of having a struggle with their faith as they're growing up, as they're stepping into a new phase in their life? Whether that's, a boy turning into like a man, you know what I mean? And I would say those are different stages, like I was 18-year-old going into their 20s, they're like, I'm not a teen no more. I'm a 20-year-old, young adult. I feel like I'm still a young adult. I'm 28.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, what would you say?
Yeah, I think that's normal, right? Any mature believer is going to have moments like that in their faith where they have questions. And it's okay to question. It's okay to maybe have doubt, but what you need to do in those points is surrender to God, and especially in those tough moments. And I want to give encouragement to anyone that's listening or watching this, and to you as well, is whenever you have those tough battles in life, it's a devil trying to stop you. He's trying to stop you from reaching your true potential. He's trying to hinder you, and he wants to make it hard for you so you could turn away. And usually, if you're able to surpass that, God's going to open up some new doors for you. He's going to take you to a new level, elevate you in ways that you never imagined. So now, you mentioned having, a hard year last year. That was one of my hardest years, where I had a lot of questions. I was searching, even though I've been a believer and, I still believed in Jesus and God, I was suffering, just mentally, I was going through something.
Yeah, same.
And I needed to surrender. I need to realize that I couldn't do it on my own. I was looking for answers in all the wrong places. So by just turning to God, and what really helped me is also getting plugged into the local church, and just building community. I was doing life in isolation, and we're not meant to do life in isolation. So for anyone that's having doubts, having questions, I say, it's fine, but don't stay there. Seek, right?
Yeah.
Look to fill in those gaps through the Bible, through reading, turning to the Word, through surrendering, through prayer, which is just talking to Jesus, opening up to Him, telling Him what you're feeling, let Him work within you, and ultimately also getting involved in the church. For me, the church that I go to is actually not even too far from here. It's like around the corner from the studio. Union Church. Shout out to my lovely family there. But, I also got plugged into my church, which did wonders for me because I had people that I could turn to, other mature believers, people that are going through similar paths or have gone through those things that I've gone through, that were able to say, hey, Jeff, don't lose hope. That were able to encourage me, that were able to show me ways to get over whatever obstacle that I was facing and say, there's a way out of there. Yeah. And I think we need that in our life. Many times we're searching for answers in all the wrong places. We're not able to humble ourselves and say, hey, I need help. Who can I turn to? Who can I trust? Because sometimes you need to confess to others things that you're going through to be able to be guided out of those things, and making sure you have a good circle of people around you.
Yeah, I definitely struggled there. I feel like gladly I had the right people in my surroundings, like a brotherhood, men that were like men of God. You know what I mean? And they were just like, dude, like, especially in my relationship. And I believe like last year I really had to, I don't know, man. I feel like last year I had to I learned this at Union.
Okay.
He's, I think it's a regular. I don't know his name. What's his name? The lead pastor.
Pastor Stephen Chandler.
Pastor Stephen. Okay, I didn't want to get his name wrong. He said something that to this day I'm just never going to forget. He said, "God doesn't heal what you don't acknowledge."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Whoa!" And what I had to acknowledge was that I had a lot of trauma from fatherhood.
Yeah.
And it was just it was such a weird time for me last year. I felt like, I was getting married, so that was a lot of pressure at that point. You know what I mean? And I had, I went through that, and at the same time, I was going through a lot of issues, like mental illness, I guess, mental issues when it came to my relationships, my father. I felt like, if anything, the root was my dad. You know what I mean? Like that was my hard root. And then when I went to El Salvador looking for my biological father, we never found him. It was just like either he's dead, he's in jail, or like con la mara, or just like we have no idea what happened to this dude. And there's so much like story, there's so much history there, but crazy enough, I had to I ended the year still very, I would say, kind of like frustrated, angry. And at the very end of the year, I had to make peace with things that were happening, and had to forgive my father, not to forgive myself. And really, that was a turning point where I feel like I personally felt, and maybe I'm wrong, right? But I personally felt my relationship, the trauma that I was having with the dad that had raised me was my because also he's a minister, and I saw a lot of flaws, and I saw like one person here and another person there, It was one of those things that it was just like a barrier in my way to like find God, to seek. And it was one of those things that I was just like, it was almost like God was like, I need you to heal this so you can accept my love, receive my love, and understand how to give love afterwards. Because one thing is like, and I say this openly, I think I made a video about it, but it was like, I had to learn how to receive love from my friends, from like people like you, like Jonathan, like Andre, like different people, like men. And then, receive love from my parents and things like that. But then, and especially my wife, you know what I mean? And then having to give love in return. Because it was like I was getting it. I didn't know how to receive it. And then two, I wasn't really giving it back. It was like, bro, get out of my face.
Dude, well, man, shout out to you, because honestly, like, and to people that are watching and listening to this, you're being an amazing man right now by being open, by being vulnerable, by sharing what's on your heart, being transparent, because we need more platforms that allow for men to talk about their battles, talk about things that they're going through, talk about some of the trauma that they're facing and are still going through, and the healing, because that's how we get healed, right? You got to be able to open up and let God do that work in you. And sometimes just discussing it, having friends that you could confide in, that you could share these things with, it's part of the healing process. I know I came to you, at the beginning of this year, and I shared some of the things that I was going through. Yeah. And man, after that conversation we had, Frank, I kid you not, man, I felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And
so did I.
Yeah, and we need that. We need, those platforms, those opportunities to be surrounded with real men, because we could then work through those things together.
And you know what's the crazy part? I strongly believe this is the reason why I'm having a son now.
Right. Wow, man. Dude.
Yeah, dude. Like, it wasn't. A lot of people were like, "Were you trying?" No, but Not really.
There you go. It's a God thing, man. It's a God thing.
But it was a lot of like, a lot of, our parents, family were like, bro, you guys been 7 years together. Like when, like what the heck, and we were like, well, we're gonna give it another 2 years, and right now it's 2025, so we were like, all right, 2027. You know what I mean? And yeah, out of nowhere was like, oh my gosh. And then it was just like, what are we gonna have and we're gonna name it Matthew. Yeah. And because we were gonna name it Matthew, honestly, I don't really remember how we came to the name. To be honest with you, I really don't know. I think it was just one of those things, like we knew that, like it was like we didn't choose. It was just like that's the name, Matthew, and but because of that, I started to focus on, well, even before that, it was like, once again, that question of, do I believe in Jesus because I was taught, or do I believe in Jesus because I understand? So I started making a lot of research where it was like, all right, where am I going to learn about God? Because then my dad is like, and we hear that a lot, get closer to God, lock in with God. But then the question to me was like, all right, what does that look like though? It was like, my dad, metete con Dios. And I was like, but what does that look like though? Like, where do I understand? Does it mean just me sit down and pray and that's it? Or is it just like, where do I seek? So where I started looking for was, I heard a video of Cliff. What's his name? Cliff something. Cliff, he's on the George Janko show every once in a while. He does a lot of like speeches in like colleges, right? And he was like, if you want to learn more about God, look at Matthew, Luke, and John, right? So then I was like, fine. So then I got me a Bible, like a newer Bible. Nice, I had like an old Bible. So I got me a Bible, and I was like, I need to read Matthew, Luke, and John. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't read them all.
It's okay, yeah.
But what I have been doing is I've been looking at the Bible Project, and I've been like, almost like I'm in, like almost brainwashing myself on the outline of the story. It's almost like you watched the movie and then you read the book.
Got it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So where I'm at right now, it's like with Matthew, the Sermon of the Mountain. And it's just been a very interesting journey so far, because it was like, well, I'm naming my son Matthew. I was like, and then I can't, like, where does that, like, I was like, where does that name come from? Who's Matthew, and what does the story really talk about? So I've been kind of diving into that, man, and it's been very refreshing. I think one of the questions, well, I'll say this: I've been a user of like marijuana for years, right? And since I started to read a little more, I've been doing different, and maybe it was because I was raised like this, like doing like actions, like pactos con Dios. You know what I mean? Like pacts with God. One of the things I started to do was I would have my desk, and I started putting my business cards, my pictures, or anything that I could find that was value to me. And I would put it on a desk, and I was like, God, here. Like physically, like, God, here, I'm giving it to you. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. I'm not really okay. My business is like flopped. Like, where do I go from here? But instead of me trying to find my own path, here, let me give you everything that I own. Put my pride to a side, really submit, really humble. Let me start going through this journey. So then I started going through that journey, and really one of my first things was, God, help me how to pray. And I learned this one prayer from Myron Golden, which is like, as business people, as entrepreneurs, we're here to serve people, right? And instead of here being like, I come from sales too, so it's like, we want the bag, bro. We're here for the bag, and we're talking to somebody because we want that sale. We want to close that sale. So what ended up happening with me is I felt like I was falling in love with the money, right? I was falling in love with the money. I was always looking for that sale, and it's like what Myron Golden said, you got that commission breath. You just want to go out and make that sale. Yeah. So I learned that through him, the prayer of Solomon. God, help me become the father or the son to serve the parents who put me here to serve. Help me become the entrepreneur to serve the people that you have put me here to serve. So that was my first breakthrough, in my opinion, when it came to finding God, like get closer to God. All right. First, how do I pray? Like, how do I dial the phone number? And then, so that was my first approach. And I think my second approach by far, I mean, that's helped me a lot. And then two, I think incorporating gratitude.
Yeah. Oh,
dude, like waking up, just saying, God, thank you for my nervous systems. Yeah. God, thank you for my eyes. Yeah. Thank you for my hands. Thank you, like legit, like it might sound, I feel like everyone's like, thank you for my car, but dude, your feet. Yeah. I'm legit like, thank you for my toes. You know what I mean? Like my nerve, just because it's like, it's so important, right? So those are the things. First, prayer. Second, gratitude. And then but I was still struggling to let go of the substance, right? I was still struggling. I still felt like I needed it to operate.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would read the Bible. I'd read the Bible, and I'm here smack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here smack reading the Bible because I felt
Yeah.
like it would help me concentrate,
Okay.
you know, and just kind of cancel things out. At some point, I had to be more real with myself and still striving to let this go. I was hanging out with a friend. He fasts from Monday to Wednesday.
Okay.
And he was telling me why he does that. Now, sometimes he does it intentionally, sometimes like spiritually intentionally, but he mostly does it for like health reasons, and he wants to keep himself like fit, you know? Before that, I had went to Bible class with an old friend's mom, and I asked her about fasting, and she was like, you got to be very intentional when you fast. Yeah, there's different types of fast. There's health reasons of fasting, but when you fast to God, you have to be more intentional. God, I'm fasting for you. I'm fasting for this, or whatever that looks like, you know? And I'm still learning. I don't know everything, right?
Good.
But one thing that he mentioned was like, and this guy's named Muhammad, he was like, dude, when I feel foggy, I fast. When I see, hear, or I feel my words slurring, I fast. He's like, it helps me like detox. Well, one, you detox naturally your body. And then he was mentioning like, he was just like, man, something happens to your body when you fast. And I was like, okay. You know, so I started doing calisthenics a little more, you know, watching what I eat, you know
Let's
what
go,
I mean?
Frank. Let's go.
Yes, sir. You know, I was really, you know, and then I started fasting, dude.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I mean, he's doing like, 72 hours straight.
Yeah,
I can't
wow.
do that, you know, but I've been doing like intermediate, and I would do like 24 hours fasting. Dude, when I tell you, bro, I can't, bro. I'm just like, I'm so proud of myself. Like,
Yeah, I'm
dude,
proud of you, man. That's amazing.
thank you, man. Like, I haven't needed it, bro.
Wow.
Like, I haven't needed the fact that I'm like, I walk out of work or something, or I'm doing something, I'm like, yo, I need it. Nah, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I feel clear. I feel better. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like this movement, bro, that I think more people that are my age, maybe a lot older, even a lot younger, that use this substance, we have an excuse. It helps us in our ADHD, helps us to
You
concentrate.
rationalize it somehow, right? I
and-
need it, for whatever reason.
And honestly, I mean, I won't lie. I feel like it did help me in that season to get through, because I did close a lot of deals like that. But honestly, now that I look back, I'm like, dude, you know, and that was one of the things from last year.
Yeah.
That was the barrier, the curtain that wouldn't allow me to face my emotional intelligence, my emotional like distress, my trauma.
Yeah.
So the moment I started, moving that to a side, I started seeing a darker side of me and like the angry side of me. And it was like, how do I address that? You know, and the way you had to address that was go through the withdrawal, let that go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But personally, I feel for me, what really what was the key for that was fasting. You know what I mean? And
man, that's awesome.
and really getting through that. And man, props to Muhammad, man, because I think that was like, you know, maybe like it was God. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
absolutely.
making sure I had that conversation with him, which allowed me to take that step where I was like, all right, you know what? And man, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm chilling. Like, it almost like kind of disgusts me now a little bit. You know, just one of those things like you sometimes like, it's in my hands. You know, the smoke and stuff. You know, well, you know, but it's still one of those things like I feel a lot better, and I'm in this mission to really like just improve as a man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
You're doing it, man. I mean, step by step, and it's going to be a refinement that happens. It's not overnight; it's over time.
yeah.
And this is a huge step that you've taken. So props to you, Frank, because
thanks, man.
that's
Appreciate
incredible to do that now, especially when you've got a baby, that's coming into this world. You don't want that cloud of smoke to be over you, right, while you're caressing your baby. So I think that you got a lot of reasons, right? You got more fuel to be adding to the reasons to break, bad habits, and for some people it's weeds, for some people it's something else, right?
Yeah.
But whatever those habits are, I think that's what you mentioned is a great framework, fasting, just completely, cold turkey, and using and having an intention behind that fasting. God, please help me with, breaking this habit, and then substitute it with something else, right? Replace it, whether it's reading the Bible or spending time in prayer or working out, right? You found ways to replace that So that way you're still, you're building good habits instead of the bad ones that are
Yeah.
going to help you become healthier,
Yeah.
help you become a better man. They're going to help you be an example for others, right? An example that you want for young Matthew when he comes into this world. Dad did it, you could do it too.
I'm like the heir to the throne.
Yeah, dude. I'm so happy you're thinking about those things and you're living a very intentional life.
Yeah, I appreciate
And
it.
it doesn't mean it's easy, right? You've had battles, and we all do, but you got to get back on the right track, right?
Yeah.
And you got to have a support system, and you got to continue developing yourself, and we're never truly done, right?
Yeah.
It's never until you're dead, right? The journey's never over. We're always looking to improve.
Yeah, dude. So, all right, you're a businessman, a legit businessman with a lot of history behind you, with a lot of success behind you. How has faith in business been a huge how have you handled both in times of pressure, in times of working with your spouse, and alongside of that long list as a man that with things that we need to handle, at first, I'm assuming when you were scaling, you probably had your first son, things are starting to change. But then, after you have your first son, because I'm not there yet, it's like your first child, your life starts to change.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start having a different list, a different mindset. How would you explain, or what has been your journey so far with those two things, with faith and business, with you and your spouse?
I think for me, when you're in corporate America, faith is not something you hear a whole lot about, right? Like religion and whatever faith, you don't really talk about that in the workplace. And for the beginning part of my career, that was true until I joined the startup. And this was after I left the first software company I started working for. I joined a startup, and it was a very small company, ground floor. But the CEO was a man of faith. And,
Wow.
it wasn't like blatantly open in the office, but privately, we would discuss our faith. And I think that was an amazing, and I also had another mentor, my VP of sales, shout out to Sean Cook, who not only became my boss and the VP of sales that were at that startup, but he also became my prayer coach. So he openly shared his faith with me. And I think that was kind of the door that I needed open to be able to incorporate, myself in my process. Faith is part of, my day-to-day thing. Right. So instead of chasing the bag, right, which I think we all do, especially if you have a career in sales, how is my work honoring God? And let the bag come to you. Don't go chase it. Attract it by becoming the man that God has made you become. So integrity started becoming very important. Right. And early on in my career, sometimes sales is looked at very sleazy, right? Because you're saying whatever you need to say to try to close the deal. And then so I started, repelling that in my life. That wasn't part of my process. And I would be more upfront with people and say, does your product do this and that? No, it doesn't. But it does this and this and that, right?
Yeah.
So just being more honest, right, in our process, being upfront. Integrity was a key. And then guess what? The money came. I didn't have to go chase it. I didn't have to, have that commission breath, because I was very focused that God would provide. I would be my provider if I was a man of integrity, if I showed up and gave it my all and really, put forth the person, be the salesperson that I would want to buy from.
I feel like salespeople have a different journey within faith than maybe other, I won't say all, but in other careers. Because I remember me being in sales, once again, the integrity, right? In the car business, that's where I learned a lot about sales. Oh man, it was just like it was one of those things that I had to fight my managers because I'm trying to be be honest. No, this, yes, this, they're like, no, bro, be quiet. Like, don't say that. And I'm like, that's not ethical. I'm not with that. So it was a struggle for me, at least, because I had to fight those people telling me to do certain things for, obviously for all of us to eat. But then sometimes the deal wouldn't go through because I'm not being I'm not lying. I'm not saying something just to close a deal because I know that customer is going to come back later. So it was a very much of a struggle. And once again, going back to the whole salespeople are like, when you're commission based, bro, faith be coming in, bro. You know what I mean? So you were saying how was that when you felt like, bro, you know what? I'm shifting. The bag is coming to me. I'm not chasing the bag.
Yeah. I think what made it really, what made that possible was that I had the buy-in from the CEO, because he would also share his
True.
stories where he turned away certain opportunities, certain partnerships because that faith, the
Yes.
integrity didn't align.
Yes.
He's like, I don't want that short term win. I'm long term. I'm focused on
Yeah.
the vision that God has
Yes.
for me. So that made me more comfortable, right? So that I think part of the culture that you're building within the company is really important because
Yeah.
if you're part of the culture, a car dealership where they're gonna fast talk you and say whatever, lie to your face just to get you to sign on the dotted line, it's gonna be really difficult for you to be a man of integrity. Right? You're probably gonna be out that door. So I think that if you are creating that, and I got an opportunity to actually create that culture at the next venture that I worked at, which was the one you were mentioning earlier, where I worked for a marketing agency, and we were franchising agency. So the owner of that organization brought me in to start to launch a franchise business, and within a few years we launched 24 locations across the country.
That's cool.
And that was all God, dude. That was all God because that company, when I came on board, I had kind of the green light because the CEO was on the same page, was to build a company based on faith. Where, as an example, like the team would get together every Monday morning and we would pray together. And lift people up in prayer and pray
that's a
over our
dope culture.
clients. And so it's something that I don't think normally, probably in corporate America, publicly traded company, you're not able to do that kind of stuff. But
No.
we had that freedom and that liberty to be able, and we build that culture intentionally.
Yeah.
And even bringing on franchisees, when we brought them in, they saw that like, hey, we're building a company that is putting God first. And
So-
because of that, God will provide, God will open up doors, God will lead us and grow us, and He did.
So when you guys were hiring people, was that one of the hiring processes? Like, hey, just not that you need to be part of the faith, but just letting you know we're very much of a culture of faith, And at that point, we'd love to hire you, whether you are from a different faith, Was that something that we're like, well, our faith don't align, or is like that didn't matter? Just letting you know this is what our culture is like, and when you step in here, just know on Monday mornings you're gonna see a circle out there, just praying, and maybe the Holy Spirit drop for a second, you know what I mean? And then just don't get scared or something. Was that part of that conversation?
So exactly as you meant, there was never any pressure or people forcing people to pray with us. That's not how God does it, anyways, right?
Right,
That's
yeah.
not, no one's forced, and hey, you got to pray with us, and you got to say this. No, I mean, if you would like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
You're welcome to participate. You're encouraged to participate.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to, that's completely fine.
Yeah.
So you could, when it's time for pray, you could go to your, back to your cubicle. You could go back to your other call or whatever. You don't have to be part of it.
Okay. Interesting.
But through that, people saw what we were doing and they wanted to be part of it.
Yeah.
And many times, like I mentioned earlier in our conversation, your vibe attracts your tribe. So when you're putting that out there, and we use that as part of our marketing, hey, we're a faith-focused company.
I
We
love
talk
that.
about Christ. We're putting God first. We know God's going to provide. We even looked at opportunities for our marketing to partner with Christian-based companies. And one of our biggest partnerships was with Dave Ramsey, which everyone knows that, hey, Dave Ramsey, is faith-focused. He talks about Christ. This is something that's
He's the financial guy.
financial guru. Yeah, financial peace. A lot of churches use that to help people
What?
get financially free.
I did not know that.
So we were advertising on this podcast, and that brought some very good leads our way, because guess what? People that were listening to that were probably Christian, faith-focused entrepreneurs. They came to us. They had a call. They realized we were faith-focused entrepreneurs. That vibe attracts your tribe. Now we're aligned, and that helps us close that deal or help them out.
Yeah, I think I'm in that journey right now where it's like the culture that I need to build in my surroundings. I think I told my wife at the beginning of this year, I was like, I don't know if it was definitely a shift for me, and honestly, it was very much after our conversation. After our conversation, it was like I was really like, the people that I'm surrounding myself with, it needs to be a little more of the morals I'm looking to accomplish, like from how I carry myself, from the way that I'm looking to build business. I felt like my strategic partners or certain partners that I was working with at certain periods in my entrepreneurial career, they were more focused on looking good and more focused on other things, that at some extent I didn't really admire. And I really didn't admire even some of the partnership, the spouse relationship that was happening within these entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's good.
And, I come from a broken family, and my father, and he has said this, he's like, I focus too much on my ministry. And to me, it was crazy because it's like, that's a ministry with God, It wasn't work. It wasn't like you had a career, you had to go and you're doing lawyer stuff. No, your work was ministry, teaching, doing this, doing that, church here, church there. But you left your family behind first. So it was one of those things for me when I started noticing that. I was like, you know what? I don't want to repeat the same thing. How do I be different? And how do I lead my family with God principles first? Hence the Sermon of the Mountain with things I'm learning from there. And then and not leaving my family, my spouse behind.
Yeah.
And it's just me. You know what I mean? And that's
Absolutely.
not what I'm
And
looking to
I think
accomplish.
it's okay to have a ministry, but your first ministry should be your family.
Yeah.
How can you lead elsewhere if you're not leading within your own household?
Yeah.
Right? How are you neglecting that? So I think that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
Right? What good is it to have all the success externally if you come home to a broken family?
Yeah.
You know, if your wife,
Get
hates
closer to
spending
the mic.
time, hates spending time with you, or
Yeah.
your kids, don't want to be around you. Right? Is that really winning?
No, it's not winning. That's not winning at all. I experienced that. I'm a result of that, and nah. It was one of those things I had really like. It was these two questions: what type of man have I become, and what type of man do I want to become? So those two questions were really hitting me hard. By any chance, do you want to like fix your mic? It's I don't know if it's like a little further down. I feel like it's going down. You got to just maybe tighten that up a little more. Yeah. Yeah, that way you're like, all right. So leading to that, right? Spouse. My wife and I have had to learn how to work together. Well, for me, right? Especially my end. I don't think she's had to she's had to learn a lot. I'm not trying to, diminish that either. But in my personally, I feel like I had to learn how to lead with love first. And then two, how to not bombard her with. I felt like I was too impulsive. Like I was impulsive.
I hear you.
I was impulsive. I was always like, yeah, we're doing this. And then big picture. And it was like she would always be like, yeah, but all right, you're talking about step 10, but what about 3, 5, and 4? You know what I mean? Like, what about these little steps that lead us to the 10? And I'm like, don't worry about that. We're going to get to 10. Don't worry about it. And it was, and in some cases it would work out, I guess, because of my ambition and, I would strategize myself, but it wasn't something that I would be able to relate or like transfer to her. And she might not understand the vision. And I'm like, well, whatever, follow. Don't say nothing. You know what I mean? Just follow. Yeah. So we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. I've matured a lot.
Good.
And as of, I think that's why God for me to some extent has allowed me to go through what I went through last year, especially with my business. We were scaling, we were going up, and then out of nowhere, done. So it was like it was a really huge 90% hit. We're still making revenue, but it's not where we were at before. Definitely. So, but now the values are different. The perspective is different. Alex Hormozy said, when you're building something, sometimes you're building like this, and you're stacking, you're good, and you're building like this. But then he's like, at some point, it's all going to crumble. But when you build and you build solid and you build like this and you build like this, it's going to move, but it ain't going to fall. You know what I mean? So it's like, build like this, right?
That foundation is critical.
Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and going back to what you said, like your ministry, your first ministry is your home.
Yeah.
So I started focusing on that a lot more, and I'm still learning, dude. I'm still learning. I'm growing. I'm 28. Like my life is changing drastically a lot over the last 2 years. You have multiple children, right?
Yeah.
You started a business with your wife, both of you guys on this venture together. You guys are running events, down from Miami all the way to Colombia. From my end, I see like you guys launched, and then just like God has been scaling it. It's just been moving and moving, and I see the progress. I see the prosperity. You know what I mean? Which is amazing. It's beautiful. What would you say to people out here, like young couples like myself, young men, to how to lead your family as an entrepreneur, as a man of faith?
Okay.
What are the things that you might want to look out for, and how do you lead your wife with
Well, first of all, thank you, Frank. That's awesome. But also, like, it looks successful and great, and things are scaling, and that's all true. But many people don't see the behind the scenes or kind of how we got there, right? And that's very true for us, how we scroll on social media, looking at Instagram, all these highlight reels, but you don't know what it took to get there, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of struggles and challenges and mistakes and failures, and same thing for us. My wife actually started the business 2.5, almost 3 years ago. Her goal, she was in corporate America, very successful executive doing taxes for these big mega corporations. And she knew that wasn't the life for her, right? She wanted to focus more on helping kind of the small, the mid-sized businesses, take all this knowledge that she learned working at these very big companies, but apply it to like the everyday business owner and help them pay less taxes and build generational wealth and get set up to have long-term success and not have to, work for someone, report to someone, right? Be able to build it on her own. And so she did that. She left corporate America. Thank God I was working for the agency that was doing really well. So it gave her the ability to go on her own and start building clients. And actually, a lot of her clients came from the franchise that I was involved in because a lot of those franchisees started making money. And they started getting hit with those tax bills because they started making a lot of money. So, hey, man, I got this tax bill.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I need help. Who do I talk to? I'm like, I can't help you there, but
It's my wife.
My wife can. So, started referring her those clients, and that became her book of business. And that started, they started referring other people, and it started growing. So that was doing really, for the first year, just kind of slowly taking her time. Second year, those clients resigned. She started getting some more. She's building her process, building her foundation, really intentional, doing some great work. And at the time, I was with that agency, but things took a turn there. I had some issues with the leadership at the franchise, and being very transparent, I faced some betrayal there. There was some things that were promised from the leadership that weren't delivered, and I couldn't be around that anymore. And a lot of that intention that we had in the beginning, where we were putting God first, I didn't feel that was happening anymore. So I couldn't be involved there. I had to figure out what else to do. I wasn't comfortable doing my day to day there.
Yeah.
So I gave him notice. Hey, I gotta bounce. I don't know where I'm going to go right now, but I know I can't do this. So that was really difficult because I had to drop that on my wife, and she was very supportive. She was awesome. Yeah, we got this. We're going to figure it out. We're in a good financial position where we'll be fine.
Right.
But she didn't realize that it was take me a while to figure out what that next thing was going to be. So that was a struggle. It was a whole year, pretty much a sabbatical on my part, where I was, kind of a little bit lost. And that was my last year. I was lost. I was like looking for my purpose, looking for what's that next thing I'm going to do. I was doing something that I really loved and enjoyed, and I thought I had it all. But I realized, when it's not your own, it could easily be taken away from you, right? And you're not in control. So it took me, several months to really, and it wasn't until I turned to God and really said, hey, I'm kind of at my lowest right now. I've had all these issues. I've lost, a close friend of mine, which really kind of put me into depression. Had mental health challenges. I just felt like I was in this dark cloud was hovering over me. And that was like towards the end of the year. My wife, being very supportive, but also kind of getting impatient now. Like, Jeff, what is it that you're gonna do? Like, you got to be, step up, like, be a leader. And the business was still going. That was doing fine, but we were looking, how else are we gonna keep building this legacy? Right? There's more things that we want to do. We got to be kind of aligned to be able to get there. So my church started at the beginning of the year, Prayer 21. Which is like a 21 days of fasting.
Yes.
21 days of prayer. We would get up early every day, pray as a church, have individual prayer. I would pray. People would submit their prayer cards, and you would get their prayer cards and pray for these people. Huh. So during that time was when God was starting to reveal things to me. He started speaking to me. I started listening and actually hearing his voice again, because for a while I wasn't hearing from God. So it took that up, it took those 21 days to kind of start seeing, wow, now I know, I think I know where I need to go now. I think I see the vision now. I see the direction that we got to head in. And it was, to join my wife, like, babe, you've already got something amazing here. You're doing some amazing work for these clients. They're becoming more successful because of you. They're paying less taxes. They're saving more money. They're investing more in their business. What if I take my business development skills, right, my sales skills, my marketing skills, and join you and complement you, right? And much like what you said, you may be impulsive sometimes when it comes to business, or you're ready to act on it, but your wife kind of slows you down. Say, hey, honey, wait up. Let's take, before we jump on step 10, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we need that. So I was that, that yin to her yang, that kind of the complement her to be able, because she wasn't doing any marketing. She wasn't doing any sales. She just kind of had her own process. But now I could come in and augment that.
Yeah.
So I started at the beginning of this year, joined as a VP of Business Development, and that had I'll talk to you more about the challenges, but let me just explain what happened
No,
first.
that's perfect. Yeah.
So just kind of joined forces, and since coming on board, we've
Yeah.
been scaling. We've doubled in size this year. We just signed our second biggest client. We renewed our biggest client. We've been bringing some additional clients, and it's been great. It's been very successful. We're still learning to work together. So I mentioned some of the challenges. As a man, right, humbling myself was very important because I'm not the CEO of this company, right? My wife is the CPA, she's the CEO.
Yeah.
So how do we work together? Like the final decisions aren't mine. They're hers because it's her business. I'm coming on board her business. She's built it. I'm coming to help her. So those are challenges right there. But how do we overcome that? A lot of it is having the right expectations.
Okay.
So hey, you're in charge of marketing, branding, sales, networking, doing these events. I'm in charge of client fulfillment, making sure the work is getting done, training the team, hiring people. So having clear expectations of the roles that we have within the organization, having communication, making sure that we're talking. Hey, this is what I'm up to today. Every morning we have a little meeting, a powwow. Babe, what are you working on today? How can I help? Here's what I'm working on today. Here's how you could help, right? Here's how I need you. So just kind of having that communication does help.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we still have some balls that get dropped and some challenges, but we're able to communicate. And at least we're on the same page of what needs to be, and we kind of get back on track if we need to. And then, the other challenge is kind of managing that with our family because we're also, raising 3 kids and figuring out like how, okay, we still have to drive to swim practice and we have, a school, a PTA meeting, we have, swim class or whatever that soccer that needs to, we got to go to. So figuring all that out in between. But what I enjoy is that I'm able to now do something with my wife and we're building a family business. And, we may not, if we may not be, huge corporation, but that's okay because it's ours, right? We're not having to report to anyone. We're building it on our own terms.
Yeah.
And it's actually helping our marriage get stronger because through a while, like last year, when the husband is not showing up, when he's not leading the family, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be obstacles. The marriage is not going to be as strong as it needs to be. So I think, having now kind of a direction, a vision for our family, it's helping our marriage become a lot stronger now too. So there's been some benefits. So those challenges are just opportunities to get stronger.
I was at Union that same time. I learned God doesn't heal what you don't acknowledge. Stephen said, I'm gonna put it in my own words, right?
Okay, yeah.
Dude, if your business ain't working, put your pride to the side and go get a job.
Yeah.
To fulfill what you need to fulfill.
Yeah.
And still work towards.
Yeah.
And when my wife would tell me, what if you get a part-time? Bruh, I would
just... It was a trigger, right?
It was just like...
Angering.
Like, bruh, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
I just hit over 6 figures. What do you mean? I can do sales. What do you mean? Like, I made that money. I can't do it again. Do you not believe in me? Do you not... da-da-da? And it was just like... It was very much a battle with myself. It really wasn't a battle with her. And man, when I look back, I'm like... Dude, you know, it was definitely a growing process for both of us. But I really had to kind of lock in at some point. It was like, yo, Frank, you really have to put this pride to the side, and really lock in on certain areas. One, because I was completely lost, 100%. And I think to this day, I truly don't really know. I feel like, I'm like, God, I know I'm a businessman. I love being in business. I love what I do. Like, I actually enjoy the client, like, signing. Yeah, I enjoy that part. I don't necessarily enjoy the production side. What I do enjoy, and this is what I did enjoy from the car business, is having that signature.
Closing the deal, right?
Closing that deal, it's like
the
my
rush.
favorite part, But it's just, it was one of those things where I'm like, all right, God, I don't know where you want me to go anymore. I'm like, where, and it was just one of those things where I was like, let me fall back. Let me take a step back without having to solely focus on like getting the bag, focus on building, scaling. I was like, let me find something that I'm still good at. I can serve someone else. I can build someone. without having to worry about me right now. And well, hence where we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And but one thing, even though that I won't say I'm really too sure on, I guess, the career and all that extra stuff. One thing I am sure about is using my voice. It was like, I grew up on stage. I grew up leading music. I remember as a kid, one, I was healing a lot from my childhood. I let go of music. I grew up as a musician. And I remember, a lot of times in worship, the Holy Spirit would drop. And it was just like a leading moment. And I remember times where my dad would have to like kneel and he would just like put his microphone and just like to a side. And I'm like, what, 15 years old? And I would grab the microphone and continue ministry and just continue and continue. And it was just like, I lived that. I lived that where it was like, I lived that whole like experience of like being in that atmosphere, But now growing up, asking myself these questions about faith, now growing up and then being like, man, I haven't been involved in any of this in years. Where am I at now? And it was just one of those things where it's like, all I know right now is that God gave me a voice. God gave me the ability to communicate with others. What I've learned so far is like one of the biggest paid things for anyone is your voice.
Yeah.
If the people that know how to communicate get paid the most, hence the sales thing, But for me, I don't really feel fully clear. But one thing I guess I feel in my gut, it was like, one, I was placed here. Good vibes, opportunity to do something like this. And I was like, well, I have the cameras, I have everything I need. And crazy enough, last year, somebody was like, then why do we have all these cameras for? And I was telling her this, or the other person, I was like, I think we got cameras because it's a new way to spread the gospel without having to worry about the overhead of a location. Yeah. And that's what I was just like, just spitting. I wasn't even thinking, I wasn't registering what I was saying in a way. I was like, you don't have to pay for a location no more. Honestly, you don't have to maybe I'm wrong in this perspective, right? But I was like, you don't have to worry about offerings. You don't have to worry about like making sure, because I feel like it's a thin line depending on certain areas I've been, where it's like the pastor starts to worry about almost like the subscription model within the base.
The money,
because, they have to pay the bills. They have to pay the lights. They have to pay the rent. And it's understandable. I understand. But then that's the thin line that kind of gets crossed. But allowing to have this, you don't have that thin line. It's just serving. Yeah. Legit. It's just that. And either you get paid or you don't. And, it's just whether you're good or you're not, know.
And Frank, you mentioned your voice. And I think even more powerful than your voice is your story. And you got an incredible story. And on top of that, you're also an amazing storyteller. So I think when you combine those two, right, when you've got an amazing story, you're a great storyteller, and you've got a very powerful voice as you do, you're able to reach many people that sometimes may not have been reached, right? You're able to move people. You're able to motivate people, inspire people. Yeah. You're able to share your lessons with people, both from your wins as well as your failures. Yeah. So lean into that, man, and you'll see kind of doors open. People be attracted to you. And all it takes is just one person, right, to give you an opportunity to say they want to be a client, to introduce you to another person that could open up those doors. So, keep doing what you're doing, sharing that story with your powerful voice.
Yeah, dude, thank you, man. And that's where I've been at. I'm like, I've done a lot of content in the past. I've been on, I've been off. I've grown a lot in the content side of things, but also when it came to this, I was like, you know what? No, I'm lock in.
Yeah, love it.
I'm lock in because, like, one, there's so many people that need information. There's so much information out there, and I'm not doing this to get paid. I'm not getting paid to do this. You know what I mean? It's just like I truly want to do something just because it's fun and it's valuable. And if it gets somewhere, it gets somewhere. Yeah. But I'm going to continue doing this just because it allows to be able to provide value to people, and it's still within the realm of thing that I'm good at. And once again, going back to our faith with Jesus, Jesus was a fabulous storyteller. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was just one of those things. I think I've said it multiple times online where it's like, dude, I'm just focused on becoming a better storyteller. Yeah. Better speaker, someone who can, really go out and just like speak and talk, Even though that I still do some websites here and there, and I still manage, we still manage some social media accounts, But even here, the owner here, you know, I've been like, dude, I'm not in a place where I feel like I want to scale that. And not because it's almost like I know I can take this car at 80 miles an hour. And the miles per hour is 70, you know what I mean? But I'm like, I'm at 35 because I'm just like, when I go full throttle, I want to make sure, I want to be confident. Like, I'm like, God has called me. I know this. I'm almost like, and I told this to my wife, when I first started managing media, I was like obsessed, dude. Like, I was just like locked in, obsessed. No one could tell me nothing. And I was going. And that's the reason why I had, in my experience, you know, obviously God, you know, that was also, in my opinion, like the reason why I got some success then, because I was obsessed. I was locked in and no one could tell me no. And I would I would put in the hours, you know? But now I don't feel like I'm obsessed. I don't feel like I'm locked in on that area. So I'm trying to make sure that whatever I do next, I am locked in. I'm confident. I know what, like, it's like this, like you said, like God spoke to me. I know I'm moving forward. It's not going to be easy, but I am moving because I am confident. I know where this is going because God got my back. Regardless if I you know, like, regardless if I don't know where I'm going, like Abraham, right? Like Abraham was, that story is crazy. Abraham goes to his wife and is like, yo, so we're moving. God said we got to go, you know, this route. We got to go 695 all the way down, you know? And it's like, well, because my wife does this. I'm like, yo, let's hang out. And she's like, but where are we going to go? I don't know. Let's just drive. But what car are we going to take? My car, you know? But what are we going to eat? Like, she need to have all the details. Sometimes I'm just like, babe, just calm, bro. Just sit. That's all I need you to do. No plan. You know what I mean? But, you know, hence back to you know, the whole thing of relationship and faith. Dude, I like this conversation. I was really hoping to have you here because I feel like every time I talk to you, you bring a lot of value. Dude, I see you've been getting jacked too. You know what I mean? Like,
Thank you, man.
You've been working out.
I gotta get back on track. Miami was very good to me. I ate a lot. So I'm getting back in the gym. You gotta get back on my routine.
Hey, that's what's up. That's what's up.
And guess what? I'm gonna invite you here publicly. I'm doing a 75 hard for Christian men. Okay, starting September. Okay, early September. So I'm gonna be launching it at Union Church. Okay. I got some people already interested. We're gonna do 75 days dedicated to working out, prayer, Bible study. And drinking water and getting hydrated and all the good stuff that comes along with 75 hard. Because it's for me, but also for the men that are going to be part of the group, right? And I think a lot of it, you know, how we show up in life, a lot of it is physical, right? So if we invest in our body, we invest in our health, we're going to be able to show up better in our business. We're going to be able to show up better in our marriage, better for our kids. You're going to need energy to keep up with little Matthew, right? So we got to make sure that, you know, we get you in the gym and start working out, making sure that's part of our lifestyle. So I'm excited to be launching that at the beginning of September. It's open to everyone, even though it's being launched at Union Church. It's open to anyone, so you don't have to be part of the church to participate. You know, if you want to just kind of try it out, hang out with some godly men, you know, build a support. Which and I've been involved in many groups, and I've gotten confidence now to lead my own. But through those groups, I've got brotherhood now. You know, I've got men that I can rely. I can pick up the phone and call and ask for advice because you need that in life, especially when you're facing difficult situations. Right, you need that counsel, wise counsel to be able to guide you, maybe help you make the right decision.
See, we got to a point where you talked about father, health, physics, lead, right? What are some principles and morals that you are building into your children? You have 2 sons, and you have one daughter. Right?
That's right.
2, I'm assuming, not a father, not a parent. Like,
not yet. You are. You are.
I am.
You already are, man.
You know, but
there's a baby in there.
But, you know, I'm not at your level, though. But, you know, like, I'm assuming, you know, they're both approached differently. You know, and then your first son, I'm assuming, right? You know, there was a lot of trials and errors, like finding your way of teaching, finding your way of leading. I'm learning that, honestly. I've learned it a lot with my dog, you know. You know, because I have a very, like, needy, grown dog. Like, dude is like this, and he needs so much attention, and it's insane. Like, he needs physical, he needs to be running, he cries for everything, and I have to find out what you're crying for. Are you hungry? Do you need to go out? Does your belly hurt? He's going through diarrhea. He's going through a lot,
Yeah.
you know, so it's almost like a child. So, and I personally believe God put him in my life, my dog in my life, because it had to teach me my emotional
Wow.
intelligence,
Yeah.
to not be like, bro, cállate. And it was more like,
Yeah.
"Ugh,
Yeah.
what do you need, buddy?
Yeah.
What's going on? Are you hungry? You know, he's just like, yes, I'm hungry. And it's just like, all right, so what are those principles? What are
Okay.
those moments you've gotten so far?
So, I've learned this over time, but, I grew up, without my biological dad, right? I had a stepdad when I got a little older that came into my life, but I didn't have a biological dad. So I always kind of struggled a bit with this, right? Like I wanted to be the dad that I never had, but always wanted. And an example is, referring to the Bible, what kind of father is God to us? And replicating a lot of those principles and morals and values that we see in the Bible. But one is the unconditional love, making sure that you're there for your kids, that you make them feel loved, that you tell them you love them, that you're there for their games, that you give them that time, that attention. Super important, right? I'm very grateful a lot. I spend a lot of quality time with my kids, especially now that we run the business from home, right? I'm there, we spend a lot of time this summer together, do a lot of great activities, vacations, travel.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important. Like just
beautiful.
don't
Yeah.
be so focused on building the business that you forget about building your kids.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, and even when you have more than one, having the one-on-one attention for the kids, right? So I took my sons today, just my boys. We went out shopping. My girl the other day, we had a coffee date, just her and dad, right? So things like that you are able to intentionally pour into your kids, and get to know them. And as you have, one, maybe more kids in the future, right? Every child has their own personality. So really get to learn how God wired them. What are their passions? What are their interests? They may not align with yours. So don't force your stuff on the kid. You may, dad loves video games, and you're gonna love video games too. That doesn't work, right?
It's so crazy. Yeah. Because
So
I've been like, he's going to love cars.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, no, Frank, he may not like cars.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
So
but like cooking, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
so you expose them to stuff. So that's what I've learned, like expose them to different things, right? And that's why we love travel so much, because I like to expose them to different cultures, different foods, different
That teaches a lot.
experiences, different people,
Yeah.
right? They really grow, when they travel and get to experience the world. So expose, and then that will show them what they like. Hey, when we went to this place, I really like that food. I want to make that. I want to try more of that, right?
what has been one of the main things that you feel like you've had to learn as a father and you've had to adjust and you've had to be like, God, help me on this side?
I think definitely patience. I think we need to learn to be patient. The kids are not going to instantly learn, especially when it comes to disciplining, right? There's, hey, don't write on the wall, right? It may, the first time they may not listen, the second time they may, but you have to keep at it. You're not going to give up on them. So I think a lot of the disciplining is important, kind of that repetitiveness that you need to sometimes do in order for them to learn it and internalize that behavior. So like pulling back, right? Like let me not discipline in anger is another big one. I used to like be angry and like immediately want to jump into disciplining.
Yes.
That's not going to work because I'm doing it out of emotion instead of actually trying to teach them and say, hey, this is, logically teach them the reason that we don't do this is because this could happen. You could get hurt, right? And Daddy doesn't want you to get hurt.
Yeah.
You don't want to be hurt, right? So that's why we can't be doing that.
Yeah.
So just kind of like taking a minute, taking a breather, and growing that patience muscle, because it is a muscle that you have to exercise, and unless you start practicing it, it's like you're not going to get better at it. So like just not jumping right into stuff.
So
taking the breather.
There's 3 things that I struggle with my dog. All right. Don't have a kid yet, so there's nothing I can really say to my kid. But it's crazy.
It'll be similar.
It'll be similar.
you'll have a lot of
So
similarities.
I told my wife, I was like, if I can't overcome this, I'm gonna struggle when I have a child. And I was like, I need to I don't want it. I need it, And it was like, one of those was his crying. Like, oh my God, my big dog can cry for everything. And it was a way that I had to learn that I haven't built my relationship totally with my dog. And it was like, well, dang, I haven't built, I'm always at work. I just walk in, I come back in, and like, whatever, I don't play with him and stuff like that. And it was like, man, if this was my child, what would that look like? And I'm here working, editing, doing whatever I'm doing, sales calls, and my dog legit brings a toy, brings it here, and is like, play with me. I'm like, bro, get away. Like, go sit over there.
Yeah.
And then I was like, dang, man, if I have a kid, I can't be like this. You know what I mean? Like, I can't be like, yo, get away, bro.
Yeah.
And it was that word. Yo, get away, bro. Stop touching me, man.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking like, I mean, a dog is like, it's beautiful, in a way, because they forgive. They're like, they don't hold resentment. They and maybe I'm saying get away. They don't fully understand it. They just know like this man don't want to play or whatever. But then I started thinking, man, if I was a child, I would be making a bigger impact here. I can't continue that. So that was one, his crying. The second is him eating the food. What I mean eating the food is like, dude, like if I feed you, like if I give you a plate here, dude, do not walk away, because this man might just jump and eat all your food and like that. So there was a couple occasions that I would bring food home or whatever, and I'd leave. One time it was a whole Chipotle burrito, bro.
Yeah, your Chipotle burrito.
Bro, I was so livid, bro. I was just so mad because I was like, dog, I waited all day for this food.
Oh,
I put it down. I don't even move like 5 seconds. You ate it. And it's just like, that was really the main thing. And the last thing has been like really giving him attention.
Okay.
So it's like, I relate that to a kid, as much as I can. I guess I've taken that approach with my dog to really think about, how am I being a dad dog? And then how does that reflect me being a future dad to a son? When he wants to play, when he needs attention, when he's frustrated, when he yells at me, or whatever that looks like, how am I going to approach this? And how can I teach a lesson? It's like that. Have you seen that video of that dad who like took his kids, like his 2 kids, to go shopping? And he's like, you got $800 worth of a budget. Right? And they picked a whole bunch of toys, right? And he picked the toys and they got to the cashier, whatever, to check out. And he was like, all right, guys, you see all these toys? Yeah. You spent $800 in Fortnite skins on my credit card. What you're going to do is leave these toys here. This is a lesson to you, to teaching you, one, I guess, to not use a credit card, right?
Yeah.
But also is like valuing money. He's like, those $800 that you spent on some digital thing for video games could have been this whole cart full of toys. But you decided to not ask me, do it. Now we're walking out without any toys. And they walked out. And I was like, yo, if my dad would have done, my dad would not done that.
No. $800, man, get that. What are you doing with $800? You're going to be at a meeting just for that.
Otalcicho, bro. Otalcicho, bro. La vara, bro. I used to hide la vara, bro. I used to hide that joke. You know what I mean? But it was one of those things for me. It was like, oh, wow. Like, that's such a different cultural, in my opinion. To some extent, it can be a little cultural, to discipline your kids differently and teach a lesson without having to teach pain, in a way. Yeah. Because I feel like, well, at least for my culture, it's very much attached to pain. It's like, and it always touching like the Bible said, la Biblia dice con la vara, like, and then they would bring the big vara, that was for me at least, right? So, yeah, so how has been that experience of being a father and leading your children, leading your household? So people like, and what would you tell people like me and maybe younger? And actually, let me turn into this because I think this is very valuable, right? I heard this. I don't know who said it. It's an Instagram dude. He's a pastor, white guy, beard, always talking about manhood, being a father, having sons, and the beauty of being a man and a father, and it's just a man of integrity. And he's a man of faith, right? But he said when a man has more responsibilities, it's good for him. He was like, it's kind of like having a trailer. It's best for him to have load on that trailer because the car or the truck doesn't go out of like the weight. It keeps it in line. And so that's something that he said. Goes next to my friend Muhammad, right? He's 25. He's about to move out. And he was like, Frank, he's hilarious. That's why I think it's funny. He was like, Frank, I need more responsibilities. He talks like that. He's like, I need more responsibilities. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, dude, like, I'm tired of living in this house. I want to rent. I want rent. I want to know what it is to take care of a house, take care of a woman, take care of this. I need responsibilities. And I was like, I really didn't think about that when I was 25. I just kind of ended up having responsibilities, but I didn't really like look for a responsibility. And he's like, no, I want responsibility. I need to become the man that I need to become. And I was like, dude, that perspective kind of like, I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like I was like, I think that's a really good way to think about things, you know? Like, you're not like, hey, I'm gonna rely on mom and dad and just stay home and I'm 30 years old and still living with my parents just to save money. He's like, yeah, I want to save money, but it's more valuable to me to get an apartment for me that will teach me the morals that I need to have to become a man. And he's 25,
Yeah,
24
that's
going
great.
on to 25, right? I know a lot of 30-year-olds that still live with their parents.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice or your thought process for someone like that? And
Yeah.
I guess your son at some point is going to be
No, it's
25.
funny because I remember sales managers, especially at the first job that I had, they would make their sales reps go out and buy an expensive car. Kind of like when you get your commission, go buy an expensive car. What happens? Because now you drove that expensive car, and now you know you got to pay that expensive car note, right? So
Don't
guess
tell
what?
me
They're going to
that.
be working, hard. Now they got more responsibility,
Babe,
right?
I'm coming home with that Porsche, boy.
So it creates that demand, stretches them.
So
right?
what was your expensive car?
Nothing.
Hey,
I bought all my. I think for me, my first car that I bought off the lot, it got repoed, and ever since then, I said every car I'm gonna have I'm gonna buy it cash.
Hey,
So I bought cars cash, and
Okay,
they don't have to be expensive. They have to be nice and
Yeah,
be able to, get me from point A to point B comfortably, but be paid for. All right,
Yeah,
I don't want no car note.
yeah, yeah. I know that feeling. Yeah,
But responsibility, I think, is important for every child to have. You gotta train them young, right? So, for example, my son now, he's responsible at least twice a week. He makes dinner for the family. So that prepares him. Now, when he goes to college, I know he's not going to starve. He's going to eat right. He's going to be able to make food for himself. Maybe be able to sell
Hustle
food to
there,
his college
yeah.
mates.
Yeah.
And open up doors. And they give him chores.
I'm assuming he wants to be a chef as he grows up.
That's
I don't know.
he doesn't want to be a chef. He actually wants to be a pilot. He wants to be a pilot.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's tough. Yeah, yeah.
So even though he's great at cooking, he's been on TV and cooked for Gordon Ramsay. Like I never force a direction. He's 11 years old, right? Did you know what you were going to be at 11 years old? It's probably not what you are today.
I was gonna say I was gonna be a musician.
Yeah. So things evolve and change. So you got to give them space to do that, right?
Yeah.
Support them whichever way they want to go. But responsibility starts early, like just through chores, right? Every Saturday, it's our cleaning day at the house. So everyone knows what they're responsible for.
Yeah.
And you also reward responsibility. So if you're doing a good job with your chores, you're going to get an allowance. We're going to give you a couple bucks. You save that money up. So when you want to buy your Fortnite skin, probably not that, but your toy or whatever you want to spend, you want to buy something you see at the store. Guess what? You got some money now that you're able to do that. So you teach them responsibility and you reward them when they are responsible. So they know, hey, with responsibility, there's usually an award or reward attached to that, right? When you're responsible for a family, comes the benefits of having a family, the love and the support and all the great things that come with being surrounded with kids and an amazing spouse. So I think responsibility is important. You got to train that young, as simple as through chores and at school, right?
Yeah.
You're responsible for getting good grades. You're responsible
Yeah.
for turning in your homework. I'm not going to be micromanaging you because I expect you to
You
do
to handle
this,
it.
right?
Yeah.
To handle it because no one did it for me. So obviously you want to give them the support and the resources, but you got to train them to be responsible early on. So they're not one of these, kids that are out in the world, with zero responsibility and they get caught up in the wrong things. They have a sense of entitlement, which runs, pretty common now. A lot of the kids are growing up with that sense of entitlement that they're owed stuff because they never were trained to be responsible from an early age.
See, I've seen a lot of kids in high school. Like I've been into high schools, and I'm just like, dang, these kids are crazy. And my aunt started homeschooling my cousins years ago. And I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those who's like, man, these kids are gonna be weird. And I mean, you listen to this, I really thought that, because I met a bunch of homeschool kids growing up, that would end up going to public school in 12th grade or something like that, right? And they were just like socially awkward or something. It was just like they were different usual kids than we were usually around. But man, I was a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or something. Anyways, I went. They've been on tournaments. They were very active. They're about to graduate high school, but they're homeschooled. And they've been in so many activities. They've gone national in public speaking. When I went to one of their tournaments or whatever, like one of their show things, right? Their competitions. not because they're my cousins. They were the only kids that were the most confident, that were the most expressive, and they have been killing it in like awards. They've been like striving, bro. And my family is a family of faith. My aunt, she's always like, glory to God. She's very like faith oriented. And seeing the fruit of what she has been sowing for years has made me like, dude, I want to homeschool. Yeah. Before I used to look down upon it. I ain't gonna lie, but now I'm like, dude, nah, like these are the most like centered kids I have seen, and then a lot of huge circle of like kids that I've seen, and I want to go that route, so that, I don't, that's as I'm growing up and hopping in these different phases, I feel like I've seen like the different communities, the different mindset shifts, like the mindset shift. Like I never thought about really schooling my kids until like a couple of weeks ago, right? Where I was like, we talked about it with my wife, right? But then, she was like, did you know your kids don't like if you don't put them in the school, the government can like do something. And she was like telling me like the government comes and they're like, bro, why you have like, put your kids in education. We're going to put them in a system. I don't know. Some crazy thing where you get separated from your children because of the lack of education. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, how long do we got? And she's like, well, they're going to go to school when they're age 5. I was like, then I got 4 years. I legit was like, I have 4 years. I have 4 or 5 years. Yeah. I'm locking in. It was just one of those things like, all right, I'm locking in. Sorry. Because primarily, I would love for my wife to like teach our kids, right? If that's not the case, cool. But being able to afford it, being able to afford to, do like when your situation, travel with your kids, take your kids out, homeschool your kids, pay for a tutor. He likes to pilot. He likes to cook. All right, cool. We're gonna buy a bunch of cooking stuff. We're gonna teach you how to cook. But now you want to be a pilot? Cool. I'm gonna take you to Gettysburg. We're gonna go into both of us. We're both gonna do it together. Like pour. Pour back into. You know what I mean? So it's like it was one of those things. I'm feeling that shift of like mindset of like locking in.
Do it. Honestly, I wish I need to do that because that's something that my wife and I were going back and forth with Elijah. He was homeschooled. My wife didn't teach him directly, but she created the curriculum, and we hired a nanny and would spend all day with him. And at the age of 2 and 3, and we've got videos of him speaking in multiple languages, writing, reading. This was at 3 years old. This kid was doing that. By age 1, he was able to use sign language to communicate. So before he even spoke, he was using sign language to communicate with us. So it's possible, tough. When you do homeschooling, right? You can control the curriculum
because you're like catering it to the child.
It personalized to him, his interests, the way that they're wired.
Not catered, tailored.
Tailored. Absolutely. So it's the best thing you could do if you're able to. I think part of it is affording it, knowing what to do, right? Having the bandwidth to handle it, right? So for our 2 other kids, they didn't get a chance. They weren't homeschooled, and you can see the difference. They're still smart. They're still smart kids. They went to daycare. I actually for the baby Elliot, we put him into Spanish school. So we didn't do homeschooling, but say, okay, let's figure out like
another way.
Yeah, because a lot of these daycares, they're not teaching them much stuff, right? And what happens, even if they're smarter or they're a little, more gifted, they're kind of held back because there's, they got to manage the other kids and they're putting on, whatever, just things that are very basic, so they're not challenged as much as they could. And these kids could learn a lot. They're sponges, they're absorbing a lot, but you need to kind of tailor it to them.
Dude, all right. I'm gonna put make it a little cooler in here.
Okay.
We're about to close out.
Okay.
I don't know how much more time you got.
I want to do some behind the scenes content.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
So, there you go. All right.
Frank is back.
I had to pull the get a little hot in here, a little toasty.
The conversation, man. We're dropping fire.
You're
so
dropping
fire.
You're
gonna be sweating.
Look, man. Share with me a story that shifted your mind, shifted your perspective.
Yeah.
It could be anything, But one of those stories, like, dude, this happened. And this was the outcome. And maybe this is what I overcame.
Yeah.
Is there anything that comes to mind?
I think I had a couple different kind of life stories that have led to me being where I'm at now. I think the big one is like not graduating high school, and it's like a pillar story for me, right? Because I was a very smart kid. I was gifted growing up. I was in the International Baccalaureate program, and I kind of use my talent to not have to work as hard, right? Yeah. And senior year, I took advantage of this to like the utmost. I was actually absent more days than I was present.
Wow.
And here's a valuable lesson. A lot of teachers, I was able, had the charisma to sweet talk them. I got this. We have professors, and every teacher, okay, no problem, Jeff. I know you're a smart kid. We're gonna pass it. And it was Miss Hemmings, Miss June Hemmings, my English teacher. She's like, I'm gonna teach you a valuable lesson right now. And I know what you're saying, and I know it's true. You're a smart guy, but I'm not gonna pass you. And she was the only teacher that failed me, even though I was absent. And this was like many classes I was absent more than I was present. She was the only one that didn't let it slide. And that was a lesson. It hurt so badly that I want to curse her out. Like, what are you doing? Like, my mom was counting on being at the graduation. All my friends, the ones that I went to
and because of that, you didn't graduate high school.
I didn't graduate high school. Not on time. So I had to go back the summer after everyone walked the stage and got their diploma and was off to college and living, enjoying the summer. I had to go with all the other kids that didn't pass the summer. So man, I was like, I had to break the news to my mom, and it broke her heart. And I think that was one of the very valuable lessons that look, you can't talk yourself out of every situation. Sometimes you got to pay the price. You did the crime. Now pay the price. And what it did is like, you don't have to let that be the end of the story. You could use that as fuel to overcome, to lock in, right? I think that's the theme of what we've been talking about. Use this opportunity now to lock in. You know what that pain is like. Yeah. You know what that failure was like. Do you want to be there again? Yeah. So that was a story I told myself I was going through college is, do I want this to be the same experience that I had in high school? Yeah. I ain't gonna let that happen to me. Yeah. So I'm gonna do what it needs. So that was one of the keystone stories that I have. Another one. This is another story that I have. I did a 50-mile hike. Okay, but let me tell you about this, Frank. Dang. Because the first time I did it, my friend, I was in this phase where I was running. I was starting to lose weight. I was filling myself. I'm like, I could, son. So a friend told me, hey, we're doing a 50-mile hike. Come out. We're gonna have so much fun. And let's do it. So this is in Falls.
You're going in there like
Great Falls. Yeah, I could do it. So I got into the race. I was actually leading all the way up to like mile 13 or something. I was in first place. And we were out in the woods. This was a hike. I was out in the woods. And I'm like, I'm looking behind. There's no one behind me. And I kept going and going. And I kept going and going. I realized, where's the pit stop? Because they have these stops, to give you water and food. And it's been a couple, miles now. And like, where's the next one? And I realized I was lost. I had no idea where the course was. No. I ended up in the Virginia woods late at night. I run out of water. I run out of battery. I had like negative 2% on my battery. So I had enough battery just to be able to call the race organizer. And actually, I called my buddy who was next to the race organizer. Yeah. And I said, hey, I have no idea where I'm at. So my buddy says, drop a pin on your map. And as soon as I dropped the pin on the map, the phone died.
Oh, no.
So I had no idea. Did they get it? Did they not get it? So I was taught, okay, if you're ever lost in the woods, just stay where you're at. Just stay where you're at. Hopefully. So I stayed close. Like I tried to figure, okay, what's the nearest road? So I found this little road. This was around Halloween, so it was like scary out there. I found like an abandoned church, a cemetery, and I was like, what the heck is this, right? But I was able to get close to a road, and I waited for about an hour and a half.
Did it get
finally,
dark?
It got dark. It was like, by this time, it was like 2, 3 in the morning.
You had no light? It's just
no light, no water, pitch dark out there. Luckily, just the light from the moon, and I see these headlights coming around the corner, and oh, thank God, that's my friend. And they found me,
okay.
So they had to call my wife to say, "Hey, we lost your husband out there, but don't worry, we're gonna go find him now." So I made it home, and like I was like muddy and all dirty and sweaty, and like my wife, what you're crazy, dude. What the heck did you get yourself into? I'm like, babe, I'm gonna do it again next year. And And she thought I was crazy. I actually showed up the next year and I did it. And I completed it this time. But the secret was don't get ahead of myself. Let someone else go first so that way I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I was able to complete it. I did it the second time. I did it a third time, up to 3 times in a row.
Oh, that's tough.
And
That's
the last time I did it, I finished second out of the entire pack. And most people give up on this. It's a 50-mile hike. Totally.
So the first time you went 30 miles.
I went like 20-something miles. I probably did more, but I stopped counting because I didn't know. I was lost, so I didn't really know exactly what I know it was more than 20 because that's kind of the mile marker where I didn't see any more after that.
Dang, bro.
But then I did 50 miles every time I showed up after that, and that was kind of an inspiration for me. So like, your failure doesn't have to be your failure. It doesn't have to be your end. It's a stepping stone to your next goal. Yeah. And you could come back, even though you were defeated at first time. Don't let that be the end of the story. Right? Gather yourself, prepare yourself, and show up more prepared next time. And I was confident. And then when I was on that second time I did it, I had my first medal with me. They give you a medal when you complete it. And every time it got hard. Every time I struggled, I would tap that first medal. Says I've done it before.
Hey,
I've been here before.
Nice.
I could do it again.
Nice.
And that gave me that confidence, that push to keep going. And then I was also some other lessons that I've learned here is it gets better when you encourage others on the way. So when I was ever feeling tired and I feel like giving up, I would say, people that were coming by me, like, you got this. Don't give up. You got this. You look strong. Keep going. Guess what happened? As I was encouraging that person, I got encouraged myself.
Yeah.
I got encouraged myself. I got a boost of energy myself. And then something else that gave me a boost of energy is when it was really dark out there, I've heard something moving in the woods.
Oh.
That would give me a boost of energy too.
He said, "I'll give a boost of energy." So this is like, you start at like, does it get dark as you continue?
Oh, absolutely. Because we start the race like around 10 o'clock at night. So the goal is to run over the night. You start at 10, right? Because the goal is you want to be done, like they give you a 12-hour span to finish the race. After 12 hours, like they have a cutoff.
So where's this at? Like in Miami?
And this is in Great Falls, right here in the Great Falls Woods. Yeah, in Virginia.
That's tough. I wouldn't mind doing something like that.
So I love that story because it's something, just a big, challenging thing, right? 50 miles, like that's not easy, right? It took work, training to get there. First time I failed, I thought I had it in the bag. I got too confident, too cocky, was humbled, right?
Yeah.
But didn't give up. And just kind of bounced back from that, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row, getting faster every single time.
That's how I felt, and I think I talked about it last podcast. I was like, I did this public speaking engagement not too long ago. A delegate was there. Where was I? Oh, yeah.
The public delegate was there.
Yeah, delegate was there, and I was like, I was confident. I was going to do Spanish and English, and bro, I started flopping, bro. Like, I forgot words.
Started doing Spanglish.
Spanglish, bro. I was like, she said principal, right? That was one word.
Principale.
And that's exactly what I said, bro. That's exactly, I kid you not. I was like,
where's this guy from?
Yo, all I could see is delegate. She looked at me, she said, and she kept looking down, bro. I felt so bad. I was like, yo, and then I didn't even stay to hang out at the end, bro. I didn't stay hang out. She was like, you're leaving?
Too embarrassed.
Yeah, I was embarrassed,
here.
bro. I was like,
I'm
flushed, out, bro. I was, I got hired again to do it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. It's not a bad gig. I get paid pretty good. It was good. It was a good gig, but
Principal.
Yeah, bro. And then I legit, bro, I had to search that up when I left because I was like, that was that one word that I was just like embarrassed about.
That's crazy.
And I was like, directora, bro. What do you mean?
Making up his own words.
Yeah,
like, what is this?
I was like, yo, what is this, bro?
They'll probably hire you again. Like, hey guys, come see this guy. Come see this guy here. They want.
Yeah, it's so bad, man. It was so
bad.
That's but yeah, it was one of those. I was like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this, And it's once again going back to God gave me a voice. I need to use my voice.
Yeah.
And someone was saying like your vices is. I saw this on Instagram, right? So it was like your vices is what the devil uses to attack certain parts. So he was like, for people that smoke, it affects your lungs, which it prevents you from speaking more. And I was like, ooh, right? Yeah. So someone like someone like me, right? I could talk for days. But then it was like, I want to speak intentionally. I want to speak with intention. I want to speak and lead with purpose and not just talk. You know, like it's. And my wife was like, "Why are you quiet?" She's like, "Why are you so quiet out of nowhere?" And I'm like, "Because I want to talk less."
Yeah.
I legit was
Wow.
like, "I want to talk less," you know, because I was like, one, I'm always speaking about ideas and things, and honestly, they're just ideas. They don't need to be put out, and I stress you out even more. You're like, now you're thinking about this. It was like, it was just a thought. It wasn't like I'm moving with it.
Say less, mean more. Right. Let your words,
Gem.
yeah, let your words carry
Say
more
less,
weight.
mean more.
Yeah. Sometimes we say a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of fluff and emptiness, and the intentionality is not there.
No.
The meaning is not there. But be more thoughtful. And for guys like us that could go miles a minute, right? We need to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Think about it a little bit more thorough. And when we do open our mouth to speak, it hits a little different. It hits a little harder.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So yeah, we gotta learn that. Right.
There's a class that I took, just one class I took in college that honestly was my last class in college.
Yeah.
But I, unfortunately didn't graduate college. I couldn't afford it anymore at the time, right? But it was this last class completely changed my life. Completely changed. It was a class of critical thinking.
Ooh.
And the moment I understood what critical thinking was, I started shifting the way that I was doing work. Because I would explain it. I'll be explained like this, right? Yeah, feel free. I would explain it like this. People want, if you want a food truck, right? You want me to put it here to get a shot at you? Yeah, I got you.
Okay, good. Yeah, because you gotta, here's the lesson: you gotta get behind the scenes footage, because you gotta do some promo, right? You gotta I want to get the story out to people. I want people to have anticipation, to build some buzz around this podcast, because this is something that has a lot of opportunity to hit the right people, right?
Yeah.
I want someone to listen to these words and say, wow, I'm inspired by what Frank and Jeff are sharing. And this opens up that opportunity for that to happen.
Dude. I was going to say, like, if I want to talk about faith more. Like, I really want to talk about God more. I have questions. I will be honest. I feel like one of my struggles is doubt. Doubt because I do believe in science.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I do feel like there's factual things, like atoms. Like they talk about all this science stuff and like the nuclear reactor. I have a friend that works with nuclear reactors, and he just be telling me how like they extract this and they do this, and I'm like, yo, that just sounds like science fiction, but it's factual. It's like a real thing, So, and then we go down into those deeper. Like I entertain conspiracy theories just because I think they're fun. I don't believe them all, because some of them are just like, come on now. But there might be some truth in there. Who knows? But until But like, for example, like things that you can't avoid, like the pyramids, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
One of those things are like, what? Like, how did that even happen? And now they're saying that it goes deep into the ground, and they found like there's like coils all the way down, and it's just other new things. So for me, it's like when it comes to the doubt, it's like I guess one of the things I was trying to find when I learned I can't base my faith off of this.
Yeah.
Which was like, is the Bible true? Where does the Bible come from? What I'm reading, how accurate is it? It was like, is there archaeological factual truths about what's happening? So yes, there's archaeological facts of things that are happening in the Bible that's happened that we can see today, and then things that are were going to happen that are fulfilling now as prophecies as we speak. That you're just like, whoa, there is truth here.
Yeah.
But
you know what you could do? Ask ChatGPT, because I've done the same thing too. Because just like you are struggling with doubt, my son was struggling with doubt, and he's 11 years old. He's got a lot of tough questions. He's a very smart kid. Studying science, studying religion in school, comes to me with these incredible questions that I have no idea how to answer. I know I believe in my faith, but to be able to articulate that to an 11-year-old in a way that he could comprehend was a challenge. So I relied on AI. I'm like, ChatGPT, help me be able to understand the Bible. Is this verifiable truth, right? And it gave me a bunch of reasons why the Bible is true, right?
Yeah.
And what is more for me, what's more important is, because if someone doesn't want to believe it, they probably not going to believe. I'm not going to be able to convince them otherwise. But to me, the relationship that I have with God is true. It's true to me, right? I feel it. I've seen the evidence in my life. I know how God has moved. I know how prayers have been answered. Things that I thought were impossible became a reality through prayer, through my relationship with God. So it's true to me. Like, I think as I get older, it becomes more true because I've seen it. So there's been more time. Deeper relationship has been built. So I know how God has worked in my life.
Yeah.
So it's hard to convince people if they don't have that relationship, if they're not open to it. And like I said, it's okay to have doubt, figure out how to, sometimes, and one of the Bible verses is like, my mind is not going to comprehend everything. Like, I'm not going to be able to understand everything. And if you're seeking to understand everything logically, it's not going to work, right? It's beyond that. It's beyond what our mind could comprehend. It goes outside, bigger than that. There's just more to it. So I can't always answer those questions to detail. I could maybe ChatGPT can give me some insight, right? But in the end, it's about that relationship. You know, it's about what God has done in my life, how I seen Him move, and that's probably the most powerful evidence or testimony that I could give my son. Is look, I may not have all the answers you want, but I know what God has done for me. I know what God has done for our family, for mom, and I could tell that story of it.
Yeah, I was wondering. Well, I was asking myself that question. I was like, well, if someone asks me, and I was like legit by myself. It's like, if someone would ask me, how have you seen God in your life? What would I respond? And as of right now, I guess the ways last year I had to learn, it was like, let God stop. Once again, going back to like, you're following the money, right? Now, we all need money, right? We need money to pay our bills. We need money to buy food. I mean, it's a necessity, right? But it's not your God, and don't fall in love with money. But for me, it was like, dude, like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to pay for that? And I started getting so stressed that it was affecting my health, and I was losing my eyebrows.
Wow.
I was losing my eyebrows. I was not good, bro. I was really not good. But I started to I had to lock in and really be like, God, if you take care of the birds outside, why wouldn't you take care of me if I'm your son? But I have to acknowledge it. I have to accept it. I have to embrace it, and I have to move with it. You know, so it's not like, okay, God, yeah, you take care of me, and then I go out there and I'm stressed out again. No, if I'm saying, God, you will take care of me, I have to let go of the stress. You can't walk with the stress and say, God, you got me. You know, I feel like those two didn't go together. Like, it was like oil and water. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you're going to acknowledge God, let it go. And letting go sometimes might be difficult because you're like, bro, but how am I gonna make the money? Like, I need $4,000 by the end of the month. I need $5,000, and maybe DoorDash and Uber ain't cutting it right now. You know what I mean? And you're just like, what am I gonna do? And it was just one of those things. I would stay up late at night. I couldn't sleep. It was bad, dude. But I really had to. I started doing like, God here is everything. God is here. I started doing those small gestures and really like, I need to. God, I'm telling you, I have doubt, but I'm putting that. I'm like, help me put that away and see it. And dude, bro, even to this day, I think it was like maybe November to December, I was $4,000 short. I don't know where that money came from, but I had that joint in my bank account.
Wow.
Legit, like.
Won't he do it? Won't he do it? I'm fired up now, dude.
Bro.
That's amazing.
And then at the very end, I was like, it was my stepdad, right? Ew, that sounded weird. I never said that before. My mom's husband.
Okay.
Yeah, that was weird. I never said that before, but I guess my stepdad, right? We haven't really had the greatest relationship throughout the years. Like, legit, like, we were at a restaurant. We almost had a fist fight at a restaurant. Like, it was bad. Like, we couldn't be in the same room. It was like putting two pit bulls in the same cage. Not
Was
good.
it Waffle House by chance?
No.
I seen fist fights go down in Waffle House.
It wasn't Waffle House, man.
Something about the food there. I don't know. It gets people upset.
And then I started learning, once again, healing from Father, healing. And I was really like, God, I need to be grateful. And then just changing. I learned that repentance, and maybe I'm wrong. Once again, I don't know everything. I don't say that I know everything and I lock in on everything. But I believe, based on something I learned, that repentance is a shift of mindset. When you're like, I repent of this, it's like I'm shifting my mind. Like, I'm turning. Your back hurts on the chair?
No, just maybe stop that.
I got you. Now, maybe I need more solid information for that, but repentance is a shift of mindset, right? So, man, I lost where I was going with this. What was I saying?
So you have to confess. Like, that's part of, like confessing, right? It's like lifting a weight off of our shoulders, and it's helping you, you know,
But
it's an
I
area.
don't remember what was the context of what I was saying. I kind of lost it. Dang. We're talking about my mom, my
Yeah,
dad.
your dad.
We
You
know
got in
what-
a fist fight.
Ew, not my dad, my
Your
stepdad.
stepdad. You got into a fist fight with your
fist
dad.
fight.
So what happened?
So, and we were touching on how God has been moving. Anyway,
Yeah.
so we would see checks come in, or a last minute client, a last minute deposit, and things that I didn't have to go like fight for. I had to go out there and like do all this work for. It was just like, it was like, once again, it came to you.
Yeah.
I didn't go out there for it. So God would open the door for it. One of the things that really stood out to me, and it was the start of a new beginning with my relationship with my mother's husband, because we didn't really have a good relationship at all, was that year. I had already been going through my healing process, repentance. Repentance is a shift of mindset of being grateful, being kind, being like serving others, right? Even if that guy don't like you don't like that guy, you gotta go out there and serve. And at the very end of the year, his son had passed that year, and it was really rough for him. And I went to my mom's house, and I made food.
Wow.
I cooked something, something slight. And I don't know. I think I made some omelets or something. I
For
don't know.
your mother's husband.
For the family,
Okay.
And then I was like, my mom was doing something. I was like, you know what? It came into my heart.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make something specifically for him, and I made something for him, because he's
trying to poison him.
Put some little rat poison in there. So yeah, man, I made something for him.
Something special. You just want to acknowledge that.
And then
it was your way of, like just showing what appreciation or
like appreciation, and just kind of like I felt like it was a peace treaty a little bit. Like, look, bro, like
okay.
I messed up.
This is after the fist fight, almost a fist fight.
Yeah, it was a bad fight. It was not a good one.
Wow.
So it was one of those things where I was like, man, I've been messed up. I've been ungrateful. I've been prideful. I haven't really been.
Wow, man, props to you.
That was just me. You know what I mean?
Props to you for taking that step, because that's big, right? Sometimes we can't blatantly say, yeah, I'm sorry, especially if there's a lot of hurt there, a lot of trauma. But you went out your way to prepare something special for him as a peace treaty.
And I took it to him, and he was in his room, and my mom was like, no. She was really happy. She was like, come here. She opened the door. I walked in, gave it to him. I gave him a hug, and I was like, look, man, like, just water under the bridge. My fault. Just new beginnings. That's it. I don't think I said much. I was just like, here you go. Bro.
So what happened? Don't leave me hanging here, Frank.
Bro.
What happened?
Like, I'm telling you, and we were short on rent. I was short on rent. I was short on some bills. And I had previously taken the approach. I'm stressed. I'm angry. I'm not in a good mood. F the world, whatever, but that day I was, that weekend I was just like, I'm taking the approach of like, I'm just grateful.
Wow.
I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful. And I was just saying, and if something would inconvenience me, I'm grateful for this inconvenience. And it was just like shift of mindset, right?
Yeah, love it.
I served this dude. Bro, my mom was like, here's the envelope. He wrote something down because he went to the wedding, but I don't know, we didn't get a gift or anything. And I was like, I don't care if I got a gift or not. We got an envelope, and we went home. We were just like, oh, okay, thank you. Appreciate it. We thought nothing of it. Bro, we get home, bro.
Tell me, Frank.
That joke was like $4,000 in there, bro.
Wow, dude.
Dude was bread. It wasn't like just a couple $100. Aquí para la charamuca.
And it was what you needed.
It was exactly what I needed, bro.
Wow.
And it was, and for me, going back to what I was saying, I see God in those moments. You know what I mean? Like, when you start really incorporating principles and the formulas that God has put in place, like Jesus has put in place, where like serve others, we will serve you. Like, God, I will take care of you. You just got to trust me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a formula.
What a testimony.
You know what I mean? So it's like, once again, follow these formulas. You're going to have something in return,
Dude,
bro.
So whenever you have David, had a staff, and I recently learned this. I didn't know this story. But in his staff, David had killed lions and Goliath and had all these different victories, and he had a staff that had notches on it, right? And whenever he was facing a battle, he would, rub his hand on those notches as a reminder of all the stuff that God took him through, all the times that God showed up.
David was a savage, bro.
And think about you, right? That's a notch on your staff, right? Where you surrendered, right? You did it God's way, where you repented, you showed appreciation, you did all the things that God shows us to do, and in that moment, He showed up in an unexpected way that went above and beyond what we could have even have thought at the moment.
Yeah. So it's once again, man. I don't know. When I talk to people, I'm like, God is a God of formulas.
Yeah, there's frameworks and there's
frameworks,
processes.
dude.
Yeah,
Like this God. I'm like, yo, God is a God of formulas. Is a mathematician. You look at the galaxy, you look at science, and that's just the way that God thinks, at some extent, in shape, or form. Dude, thank you so much for being here, bro. I really appreciate our conversation. I want to have another conversation some other day with you. If you know anyone that's open to talk about their story, their testimony, talk about God, business, like really faith and business and relationships are the three things that I feel like I talk about a lot, because, I guess those three are my main thing, God, pursuing my entrepreneurship journey, and then obviously, my relationship with my wife, and my relationship with now my kids and family and all that cool stuff.
Dude,
so
one of these days, I would love for us to do maybe a couples podcast, right? With your wife.
I have questions there too.
Shemaiah as well, right?
Shemaiah
and Emma, because we also, besides sharing a lot of different values, we also have interracial marriages, different cultures, intercultural marriages. So that's pretty neat, right? Being able to talk about that, the different things that happen, and there's a lot, communication. Like we gave our side today, but they may have a different perspective on some of these things, right? So bringing that into context kind of would make for a richer conversation. So that could be an idea for the future.
Definitely, bro. And I wanted to ask you questions about that, but I feel like we've gone long. We've gone a minute. You know what I mean?
Dude, we've been like two hours on this podcast.
The last conversation was like an hour and 30 minutes, and I was like,
I remember.
I was like, dude, like it's just. No, the last podcast was like an hour and 30 minutes, and I was like trying to shoot for like 30, maybe 40, but we just kept going. And but once again, I just want to keep this natural feel with more people, and I want to keep this mission going. And like I said, with nothing really in return, I'm not doing fully like here's an offer, you know, not there yet. You know what I mean? I'm just like having fun. I want to provide people with value, taking notes for. I didn't take as much notes because I felt like it was way more very interesting. So
and we could always go back to the video and stuff,
breaking down the segment. So now my strategy is a little different especially when it comes to the content. But
that's awesome,
dude. Let's close this out. Where can people find you? Find your business for things that you got going on, accounting, all that cool stuff.
So the best place to reach me is on Instagram at Jeff Zelaya. And congratulations if you made it this far. I'm so proud of you because this has been pretty long, but you made it. That means that you found value, hopefully, in what we discussed today. And if you want to share, you want to see more of our life and our business and learn more about us, at Jeff Zelaya is the best place to start. So that's on Instagram, JeffZelaya. Make sure you connect with me there. Hit me a message. Tell me you found me on Frank's podcast, and I'm going to hit you up and follow you right back. You could connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not on Instagram. You could also I think Instagram's probably the best place. Actually, that's where I'm on there pretty much. Most days, very active. So I think that's the best place to reach me. So find me there, and thank you again for listening to this conversation. Make sure you connect with this guy, Frank. Listen to more of this podcast because he's going to bring some gems all the time.
Yes, sir. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dude. Appreciate you.
And cut. Yes, sir.
Let's do some pictures.